October 10, 1943, 25,000 feet above the desolate plains of northern Germany. Inside the aluminum skin of the B-17G flying fortress named Heaven's Fury, the world is a symphony of monotonous, bone-jarring noise. The four Wright Cyclone engines thrum a constant, deafening rhythm that vibrates through the flight deck, through the seats, and into the very marrow of the 10-man crew. Outside, the air temperature is a brutal 60 degrees below zero. Frost spiders across the inside of the plexiglass windows, a fragile barrier against the thin, merciless stratosphere. For the men of the 381st Bomb Group, the mission is, for all intents and purposes, over. The target, the heavily defended Focke-Wulf aircraft factories near Bremen, is a receding memory of black smoke and angry, blossoming flat clouds. They have dropped their bombs. Now, all that remains is the long, perilous journey home to RAF Ridgewell in England. In the pilot seat, First Lieutenant Jack Callahan, known to his crew simply as Cal, keeps a steady hand on the yoke. His eyes, tired but alert, scan the instruments, then the sky, then the instruments again. Beside him, co-pilot Mike Russo lets out a slow breath, his voice a strained crackle over the intercom. "Looks like we made it through the worst of it, Cal." But the worst was not over. It had just begun. A violent, percussive bang, sharper and closer than the distant flak, rips through the fuselage. The entire fortress shudders as if struck by a giant's fist. On the instrument panel, the oil pressure gauge for engine number 3 plummets. A red light flashes, insistent and damning. Cal's voice is unnaturally calm, cutting through the sudden spike of adrenaline. "Feather number 3. Russo's hands are already moving, his motions practiced and swift, pulling the propeller control to stop the blades from windmilling, to reduce the drag of a dead engine. But the damage is done. The B-17 begins to lose speed, its powerful, symmetrical drone now a lopsided, struggling beat. Slowly, inexorably, Heaven's Fury begins to fall behind the protective embrace of the combat box, the tight formation of bombers whose overlapping fields of fire are their only real defense against the predators of the sky. They are becoming a straggler, a lone, wounded animal separated from the herd. From the tail gunner's position, the loneliest post on the plane, Sergeant Frank Kowalski squints into the blinding sun. His heart hammers against his ribs. He had watched the rest of the group shrink into the vast blue emptiness ahead. Now, behind them, something new appears. Tiny black specks, like pepper scattered on a tablecloth. "Tail to pilot. We got visitors. Looks like 5 o'clock high." Cal's knuckles are white on the yoke. "Friendlies, Kowalski?" There's a pause. The specks grow larger, resolving into distinct shapes. Wings. Sharp, predatory wings. Kowalski's voice is a register higher now, the boyish tone from back at the barracks completely gone. "Negative, Captain. Definitely not friendlies. I see crosses on the wings. They're 109s, and Focke-Wulfs." Another pause, this one filled with disbelief. "Captain, I'm counting 6, 8, 10. My God, there's more coming out of the sun." Up in the nose, the navigator, Lieutenant Sam Brody, looks up from his charts, his face pale. The bombardier, Vic Esposito, grips the handles of his twin 50 caliber machine guns. Every man on the plane is frozen, listening to the disembodied voice from the tail describe their doom. The final count comes over the intercom, each word a nail in their coffin. "Captain, they're forming up. 14 of them. I count 14 enemy fighters. And they're moving to 12 o'clock high. 14. The number is impossible. A full German staffel, an entire squadron assembling just for them. Not a frantic, opportunistic attack, but something coordinated, something methodical." Cal looks ahead, through the armored glass of the cockpit. He can see them now, a perfect horizontal line of death, positioning themselves for the most feared tactic in the Luftwaffe's arsenal, the head-on attack. A synchronized execution pass designed to overwhelm the bomber's forward-facing guns and shred the cockpit in a single devastating wave of cannon fire. The trap has been sprung. The wolves have surrounded their prey, and they are preparing for the kill.
The 14 Luftwaffe fighters hang in the sky for a moment, a perfectly dressed line of silver and gray against the deep, unforgiving blue. They are a surgeon's scalpel, poised and ready. For the crew of Heaven's Fury, it feels like an eternity. Time stretches, thins, becomes brittle. The rhythmic drone of their 3 good engines is the only sound in their universe, a slow heartbeat counting down their final seconds. Then, as one, the 14 fighters dip their noses and begin their dive. The physics of the attack are terrifyingly simple. They are diving from 12 o'clock high, using gravity to build up immense speed, transforming themselves from aircraft into guided projectiles. Their singular goal is to fly straight through the B-17's path, unleashing a torrent of 20mm cannon and machine gun fire in the few seconds of the pass. At these closing speeds, the B-17 lumbering at 170 miles per hour, the fighters screaming down at over 400, the window for engagement is impossibly small. It is a tactic built on precision, coordination, and overwhelming firepower. Panic erupts over the intercom. It is a raw, primal thing. "Christ, look at them all!" a waist gunner shouts. "They're coming straight for us!" The ball turret gunner, crammed into his plexiglass sphere beneath the bomber, spins his turret forward, but his guns can't elevate high enough. He is a helpless spectator. Beside Cal, Mike Russo's training takes over. His voice is tight, urgent. "We need to dive, Cal! Standard procedure! Dive! Present a smaller target! Throw off their aim!" It is the correct response. The by-the-book maneuver. Tighten the formation if you can, or dive to build speed and try to evade. But their formation is gone. Diving is their only chance. "Captain, give the order!" But Cal says nothing. His eyes are fixed on the approaching wall of fighters. He isn't looking at them as 14 individual planes. He sees them as a single entity, a perfectly synchronized machine. He sees their greatest strength, their flawless coordination. And in that strength, he sees a single, desperate, and utterly insane opportunity. He watches the tiny flashes of light begin to sparkle along their wings, their cannons opening up. The air around the fortress will soon be saturated with high explosive shells. Vic Esposito, the bombardier in the nose, can see the faces of the pilots now. He is staring down the barrels of 24 cannons. He screams into the intercom, his voice shredded with terror. "They're firing! Dive! For the love of God, dive!" Then Cal's voice cuts through the chaos. It isn't an order to dive. It is something else. Something that makes no sense. "Mike," he says, his tone as level as if he were ordering coffee. "Nose up. I want you to give me 10 degrees of climb." The cockpit falls silent, the panic shouts choked off by sheer disbelief. Russo stares at his commanding officer, his eyes wide with horror. "Climb. Cal, are you crazy? They'll fly right through us. You'll tear the wings off." "Just do it," Cal says, his grip tightening on his own side of the yoke. He is not looking at Russo. He is looking at the enemy. He is looking death in the eye. Sam Brody, the navigator, leans forward from his station just behind the pilots. "Captain, pull up! You're going to kill us all!" The intercom echoes his sentiment. It is a mutiny born of terror. They believe their pilot has finally cracked under the strain, that he has chosen suicide over a pointless defense. The heavy bomber, already struggling on 3 engines, groans in protest as Callahan and a reluctant Russo pull back on the yokes. The nose of Heaven's Fury lifts. Instead of diving away from the attack, the 30-ton bomber is ascending, slowly and deliberately, directly into the path of 14 diving fighters. The distance is closing at over 800 feet per second. Collision is no longer a risk. It has become an almost mathematical certainty. The crew is not flying into a fight. They are flying into an impact.
Imagine you are standing on a railroad track as 2 trains approach each other, destined for the same point. Now, imagine this happening in 3 dimensions, at a combined speed of over 600 miles per hour, with no brakes and no room to step aside. This is the reality inside the cockpit of Heaven's Fury. The world outside the plexiglass has ceased to be a sky. It is now a rapidly expanding constellation of Focke-Wulfs and Messerschmitts. The graceful predatory shapes have become blunt instruments of death, growing larger every microsecond. The sound of their cannons is no longer a distant sparkle. It's a terrifying thump, thump, thump that seems to be coming from just beyond the nose of their own plane. Red and green tracer rounds, lazy at a distance, are now searing, hypnotic streaks of light whipping past the cockpit, close enough to see the smoke they leave in their wake. In the lead FW-190, Luftwaffe Oberleutnant Klaus Richter is focused, his entire being narrowed down to the gun sight in front of him. He has done this dozens of times. The straggling Wehrmacht, the 4-engine bomber, is a fat, easy target. His flight plan is perfect. His pilots are disciplined. He anticipates the bomber's desperate dive, the move that will expose its broad back and wings to his cannons. He has his thumb on the trigger, waiting for that moment. But the moment never comes. Instead, the bomber does something impossible. It climbs.
The silver nose of the B-17 lifts, and suddenly Richter is no longer looking at the top of a fuselage. He is staring directly into the 4 massive radial engines of a flying fortress. One is feathered and dead, but the other 3 are roaring, their spinning propellers hypnotic discs of destruction. The bomber is not running. It is challenging him. It is playing a game of aerial chicken, a game that has no winner. Richter's mind, trained for predictable patterns of evasion, struggles to process the suicidal maneuver. His perfect firing solution is gone. In its place is the rapidly growing certainty of a head-on collision. Inside the B-17, time has dissolved into a state of pure, unadulterated terror. For Vic Esposito in the nose, there is nowhere to hide. He is the tip of the spear. He can see the black crosses on the wings, the exhaust stains on the fuselages, the flash of the sun on the enemy canopies. He is paralyzed, gripping his guns but unable to fire, knowing his bullets would have no effect against the armored engine-forward profiles of the fighters. He can only watch as death accelerates toward him. The waist gunners can see nothing but empty sky. They only hear the rising crescendo of panic on the intercom and feel the bomber shuddering as it strains to climb. They are blind passengers on a ship sailing into an abyss. Cal Callahan is the only island of calm in the storm. His face is a mask of concentration. He understands the psychology of the pack. The German attack is devastating because it is a single, coordinated blow. Every pilot is focused on his own target, flying in tight formation, trusting his leader and his wingmen to hold their position. Their discipline is their weapon. But Cal is betting everything on the idea that their discipline is also their weakness. He knows that at the core of every fighter pilot, beneath the training and the bravado, is a fundamental instinct, self-preservation. You do not collide. You do not fly your state-of-the-art aircraft into a 30-ton wall of aluminum. The German formation is now less than 1,000 yards away, half a mile, a distance they will cover in less than 3 seconds. The airframe of Heaven's Fury groans under the aerodynamic stress. Cannon shells begin to find their mark, stitching fiery holes along the wings and fuselage. A shell explodes somewhere behind the cockpit, sending a spray of shrapnel through the radio room. Still, Cal holds the nose up. He is forcing a choice. He is telling 14 enemy pilots, in the universal language of violence, you can shoot at me or you can swerve. You cannot do both.
For Oberleutnant Klaus Richter, the world has compressed into a single image, the enormous 4-engine Spectre filling his entire windscreen. The spinning propellers of the B-17 are no longer abstract threats. They are meat grinders, feet from his cockpit. The instinct for survival, an impulse more powerful than any training manual or military order, screams through his mind. In the final split-second decision between firing his guns and saving his life, there is no choice. He brakes. Richter wrenches his control stick hard to the right. His FW-190, exquisitely responsive, banks violently, its wings straining against the G-forces. This single, desperate maneuver is the spark that ignites a chain reaction of chaos. His wingman, flying just off his right wing and concentrating on his own firing run, suddenly sees his leader's aircraft slash across his path. He is forced to brake as well, pulling up sharply to avoid a collision. To his right, another pilot swerves. To Richter's left, the same panic ripples through the formation. The perfect, deadly line of 14 fighters, the instrument of execution, disintegrates into a frantic, disorganized scramble of individual planes, each pilot fighting not the bomber, but the man next to him. The coordinated attack has become a mid-air traffic jam at 400 miles per hour. And in that precise moment of chaos, Cal Callahan's gamble pays off. The bomber plows through the now scattered formation like a ship through a broken wave. The immediate threat of a head-on collision is over, but the fight has just begun. "Gunners!" Cal's voice roars over the intercom, electric with command. "Your targets are free. Open fire. Give them everything you've got." The crew of Heaven's Fury, who moments before were certain they were about to die, are shocked back to life. Adrenaline surges through them, replacing terror with ferocious purpose. The bomber has become a hornet's nest, and they have just kicked it. As the German fighters flash past them on all sides, overshooting, diving, climbing, they present perfect targets.
The deafening, rhythmic thunder of 10 Browning M2 50 caliber machine guns erupts from the bomber. From every position, the nose, the top turret, the ball turret, the waist windows, the tail, streams of tracer fire reach out like angry fingers. Sergeant Kowalski in the tail, who had been a helpless spectator to the head-on charge, now finds himself in a target-rich environment. A BF-109, its pilot disoriented, zips past his position. Kowalski swings his twin guns, leads the fighter, and squeezes the triggers. He watches his tracers walk directly into the Messerschmitt's engine cowling. A bloom of black smoke erupts, followed by a brilliant orange tongue of flame. The fighter falters, then begins its long, final spiral toward the German countryside below. "I got him! I got one!" he screams, a cry of triumph and relief. Below, the ball turret gunner tracks an FW-190 trying to pull up from its dive. He unleashes a sustained burst, seeing pieces of the canopy and fuselage tear away before the fighter rolls onto its back and disappears. The waist gunners fire at anything that moves, their barrels glowing hot, filling the fuselage with the sharp, cordite smell of spent cartridges. The air around the B-17 is a maelstrom of bullets, cannon shells, and broken aircraft. Cal's insane maneuver has not just saved them, it has turned the hunters into the hunted. They have drawn blood, but the cost of their defiance is becoming clear. The radio operator reports he's hit, his voice weak. Wind howls through dozens of new holes in the fuselage. The bomber is still flying, but it is grievously wounded. And the surviving German fighters, stunned and furious, are already beginning to wheel around in the sky, reforming not for a disciplined pass, but for a vengeful, chaotic brawl.
The Wolfpack, once a single, unified predator, is now a scattered collection of angry, vengeful individuals. The surviving German pilots, their initial shock turning to rage, bank their fighters and come around for a second pass. But the tactical advantage is gone. The element of surprise has been spent. They no longer attack as a coordinated wall of cannon fire, but in desperate piecemeal attacks. Pairs and single fighters making slashing runs from multiple angles. This time, however, the crew of Heaven's Fury is ready. Their fear has been burned away in the crucible of the head-on pass, replaced by a cold, determined fury. They have faced the worst and survived. Cal Callahan keeps the bomber flying straight and level, turning it into a stable firing platform. He trusts his gunners. He has given them a chance, and now they are seizing it. The intercom, once a chorus of panic, is now a staccato symphony of professional calm. "Bandit, 3 o'clock low, coming in. Top turret swinging to port. Tail, I see him, I'm on him." The B-17 bristles like a porcupine, its 10 heavy machine guns creating a lethal 360-degree field of fire. The German pilots, accustomed to panicked, inaccurate return fire from a crippled Bonger, are met with a disciplined and deadly facility. Another Focke-Wulf, pressing its attack too close, is ripped apart by converging fire from the ball turret and a waist gunner, exploding in a fireball that momentarily lights up the sky. For the Luftwaffe pilots, the calculus of the engagement has changed. This was supposed to be an easy kill, a lone, damaged straggler. Instead, it has become a costly and dangerous fight. They have lost at least 2 of their number, with several more damaged. Their fuel and ammunition are running low. The psychological blow of the bomber's insane charge has planted a seed of doubt. This American crew is not behaving like prey. Reluctantly, one by one, the German fighters break off their attacks and peel away, vanishing back into the sun from which they came. A profound, ringing silence descends upon Heaven's Fury. It is broken only by the uneven drone of the 3 remaining engines, the wind whistling a mournful tune through the shrapnel holes in the fuselage, and the quiet groans of the wounded radio operator. The crew is soaked in sweat despite the freezing temperatures. They are trembling with the aftershocks of adrenaline. They look at each other across the cramped compartments, their faces smeared with grease and grime, their eyes wide with a shared, unspoken understanding. They have just passed through the gates of hell and come out the other side. In the cockpit, Mike Russo slowly turns to face his pilot. He looks at Cal Callahan, whose hands are still steady on the yoke, his face etched with exhaustion but otherwise unreadable. Russo's voice is quiet, filled with awe. "My God, Cal, how did you know that would work?" Cal takes a long, slow breath before answering, his eyes still scanning the empty sky. "I didn't," he says, his voice raspy. "I just knew what they expected us to do. I figured the one thing they weren't prepared for was the one thing we had to try." The long road home is a testament to the bomber's legendary toughness
and her crew's newfound resolve. On 3 engines, with a wounded man aboard, leaking hydraulic fluid, and with a control system that feels sluggish and damaged, they limp across the North Sea. Every mile is a small victory. The tension does not fully break until hours later, the faint chalk-white line of the English coast appears on the horizon. When Heaven's Fury finally touches down at RAF Ridgewell, it is a wreck. Its skin is pockmarked with hundreds of holes, its tail section shredded, but it is home. The crew emerges from the battered fuselage not as boys, but as veterans forged in a single, unbelievable act of defiance. The story of Cal Callahan's head-on charge would become a quiet legend within the 381st, a moment when one man's calculated madness defied all logic, turning a coordinated execution into chaotic defeat, and saving 10 men from certain death.